Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So I would like to start with a very easy thing, which is what is metabolic flexibility? Metabolic flexibility is defined as a capacity for the organism to adapt fuel oxidation to fuel availability. And it has gained more and more interest in our scientific community, and it's now considered as a core component of metabolic health. We all know that it exists a strong relationship between physical activity and metabolic health. And so my question a few years ago was, is there any relationship with metabolic flexibility as well? If this exists, that will mean that physically inactive people are metabolically inflexible, while people who are physically active will be metabolically flexible. So by combining 10 years of bed rest studies, knowing that bed rest is a very unique model to study enforced and extreme physical inactivity, but also to unhidden some of the underlying mechanism, we proposed this cascade of adaptation to physical inactivity. I'm not going to detail it here, but what you want to see is that physical inactivity is inducing or impacting the three main organs involved in the regulation of energy balance, which are the muscle, the adipose tissue, and the liver. Altogether, these metabolic alterations are inducing the development of metabolic inflexibility, which is a very common feature in the metabolic disease. So this suggests that the current general adoption of sedentary behaviors may lead to a population of metabolic inflexible people. And this line on the Australian group of Genevieve Healy has made this analysis using the NANESS study, and they showed a detrimental relationship between the time spent sedentary and a number of metabolic outcomes like cholesterol, triglyceride, insulin sensitivity. On the contrary, they observed positive association between the number of time they were breaking up their sedentary time and other metabolic outcomes such as waist circumference, cholesterol, or biomarkers of cardiovascular disease. What is very important to note here is that this is not data from self-reported survey. This is objectively measured data with axiometry, and the relationships were observed even when adjusted for age, race, sex, and even moderate vigorous physical activity, which means that breaking up time spent sitting will confer health benefits, even to people who are already physically active. So this being said, and based on this observation, my question was, what is the effect of frequent interruptions of sedentary time on metabolic flexibility? And I'm running these studies these days that some of you already saw the design yesterday. It's a randomized crossover study with 3 conditions. We have 1 month of washout period in between. Each condition consists of 4 days. We have 3 days in free living condition, followed by 24 hours in a whole room calorimeter. The first condition, we are asking people to maintain their sedentary habitual routine. Second one, we're asking them to perform 45 minutes of moderate intensity brisk walking in the morning. And the third one, it's related to what Jason just presented. We are asking them to break up these 45 minutes and perform 9 bouts of 5 minutes every hour during 9 consecutive hours. During the whole time, we're controlling for physical activity, of course, caffeine consumption and diet. And you will see that during the study visit, we are providing them with a moderately carbohydrate diet. During that day, they arrive, we ask them to sit for an hour, and then we provide them with breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, breakfast the following morning. They are following the instructions on physical activity, and we're collecting blood every hour, even during the night, and I think they hate me every time they woke up at 3 a.m. actually. So far, we've completed the study in 15 subjects, and unfortunately, I have blood results only for 9 of them, and we're studying sedentary, overweight, non-insulin resistant population. So the question is, how do we measure metabolic flexibility? I'm sure you have heard this term a lot recently. It's quite sexy. People like to use it. But at the end, what do they really measure? The most common approach is to use euglycemic hyperinsulinemic clamp as a metabolic challenge and to look at the changes in respiratory quotient. Just as a reminder, it's the proportion of carbohydrates over fat being used as fuel, and the higher is the ratio, the greater proportion of carbohydrate is being used, the lower the ratio, the greater proportion of fat. At first, it was proposed to look at the difference in this RQ in response to the clamp. But this is a supraphysiological state. It doesn't represent what we do during the day. So then, it was proposed to look at the response to a change in diet. So either high carbohydrate diet or high fat diet. And as you can see, I choose the high carbohydrate diet in my study. And in that case, it was proposed to look at the area under the curve as a respiratory quotient or the mean RQ. So what about our results? Well, this is evolution hour per hour of the respiratory quotient in the whole rim chirometer. In the black circle, you can see the sedentary condition. Very briefly, they start and are using more fat because we're fasted. And I'm sorry, this doesn't work. They're going then to use more carbohydrate following breakfast, following lunch, following dinner, snack, and then it's going down because they are fasted more and more. What about the one bout? It's increasing as well, but then there's one bout. Now they are relying more upon fat. And what I find quite interesting is it doesn't really increase again. We will expect it, but it doesn't. And it stays very low. Then, if we look at the microbouts, it's increasing even above the values we had in sedentary condition. And I think, as I said yesterday, it's because they are not depleting the glycogen storage. So they're using the carbohydrate that is coming from the diet here. What I found very interesting is after the last bout of exercise, here, this respiratory quotient are reaching the values we had with the one bout. And honestly, I don't really know what to conclude right now, but I spend a lot of time looking at this graph, and I'm sure something will come out of it. So then I follow the recommendation, and I look at the average RQ or some results with the AUC, nothing. Then I look at the changes, and I didn't do fasting versus postprandial. I did the pictonator because it was different according to the condition and the subjects. And once again, I had nothing here. Here we're really looking at an average. And we can see it's a very dynamic response. Then there's another problem. I think here I'm looking only at an effector. What I believe is when we look at metabolic flexibility, we need three components. We need a metabolic challenge. First of all, the metabolic challenge can be a high-fat diet, high-carbohydrate diet, can be exercise, can be pregnancy, can be any of them. And we need to open our mind here. Secondly, what we are really examining is the allosteric relationship between the regulator and effector. So far, we only look at the effector, the RQ. Now, we want the relationship with a regulator. What is a regulator in our case? Well, it will be insulin. And so what I propose to do, and we have done in the past, is looking at the variance in RQ versus the variance in insulin. In theory, well, on the left, metabolic flexible person will shift from carbohydrate to fat very easily at a very low signal of insulin. While a metabolically inflexible person will not shift between the two nutrients, even at very high level of insulin. And then if we plot the variance, we obtain the graph below with, on the top left, the metabolically flexible person, and on the top bottom right, the metabolically inflexible person. So what about insulin? This is what I have, and you will very quickly notice that I'm not having the same result as the other persons. I'm not having a decrease in my plasma insulin or area under the curve. One of the reasons might be because I'm working with female much more than male in this study. Maybe also because they are insulin sensitive, not non-insulin resistant. I don't really know, honestly. But I would like to invite you to not only look at insulin, because the effector and regulator can be other thing. It can be insulin working on the decrease or the use of glucose. It can be the percentage of disappearance of glucose or suppression of free fatty acids. So we really need to think more broadly here. So when I plot all of these results, what do I have? Well, we can see, first of all, a very, very large variability, which is not helping my case right now. But at least it's going in the right direction. I can see that the sedentary, in sedentary condition, they are more on the bottom right, and when the physically active condition. What I can find is also this nice relationship with the percentage of suppression of free fatty acid. And actually, we really have something when I look at the percentage of disappearance of glucose, and the microbiotes are facilitating this process. So one of the problems here is maybe because I'm on an acute condition. I don't have training effect. Because when we were combining results from past studies with training, detraining, bed rest effect in male, female, different type, well, we did observe a very nice relationship between the variance at the bottom of our non-protein respiratory quotient and the physical activity level, and also a nice relationship between the variance in insulin versus variance in RQ in the lean people along the continuum of physical activity. And I invite you to look that we had the same slope in the obese people. So we really have something here. So to answer my initial question, I'm sorry to say I don't know, but I really hope we will do further study with chronic effect and we'll be able to answer it. I would like to thank you for your attention and thank all the people who helped me on this study.